Hello folks, welcome to the video. Bit of a short one today. I got asked by a viewer on one of my previous videos, it's actually my second Hambini video, how he was going to remove bearings from an oversized pulley wheel system without damaging the ceramic balls within the bearing. So like I say, he wanted to know how to remove them. And I'm guessing he doesn't have any specialist tools in which to do that. So what I'm going to do today is show you how you can remove bearings from pulley wheels like this one with very simple tools without causing excessive damage to the bearings or really any damage at all. So I'm going to show you two methods. So with this particular pulley wheel, it actually has a side that has a bit of a lip on it, and that's because this has a reduction in the size here to stop the bearing from being pushed too far through. So when we push the bearing out, we have to make sure we're pushing out from this side, pushing from the back here. So when you have a pulley wheel like this, make sure that you push from the right side. You can just use a little measuring tool or something to check the aperture and make sure that you're getting the larger of the two before you start pushing. Of course, if you push into that stop that's at the back here, you'll just bust it out and you'll end up with a bit of aluminium burst out the back of the wheel. So that's no good. Most pulley wheels, like the plastic ones, don't even have a stop on them, so you can actually push the bearing out from both sides, but this type does have a stop. Right, so the most basic way to push this bearing out is by using impact, basically, but we're going to try and reduce any potential damage to the balls as best we can. Okay, so I actually need to get a mallet out, just a second. So this is the least good method to use, but it is the simplest method. So what you need is something to rest the wheel on, basically. And if you look here, you can see we have this outer lip where the bearing sits, and you also have another outer lip here. So you want something to rest on this, basically, the center or just the exterior of where the bearing sits. So this socket I have here is actually too big, but you'll get the idea. If you've got a socket that fits perfectly around that lip there, you can rest it on top of that socket. So once you've got it resting on something, you can take another socket. In this instance, this is it's an imperial measurement. This is half inch socket, and you can place that on top of the bearing. And what you're looking for is a socket that fits as close as possible to the outer ring. So if you hit the inner ring, okay, or the seal of the bearing, the inner race or the seal, you're likely to smash the balls into the races, which will cause damage. If you can focus your impact solely and evenly on the outer ring, it shouldn't do any damage to the balls. So what we're going to do, as I say, use is a socket which fits as closely as possible with that ring. Okay, so this half inch one in this circumstance is as close a fit as we can possibly get. So you'd need a larger socket to rest this thing on, and then your smaller socket, and then you can use a mallet to tap it out. For me, if you have a vise, that's even better. What you do is you open the vise until the jaws of the vise perfectly sit on the edge of the rim just outside the bearing seat. Okay, so the vise is going to be resting on this edge. It's not going to go anywhere because there's a little chamfer here. So it sits on there. Now, to prevent any scratching or damage to the wheel, we can lay a cloth over the top of the vise, and then again take your socket, just make sure I've got the right side here, place the socket on top, and then you would use light blows to tap the bearing out. And like I say, as long as your socket is sitting on the outer race of the wheel, you stand a very good chance of not doing any damage. Now, this method is not ideal. Just make sure you're using something soft and you choke up on the mallet. You don't do big blows, you just gently tap it out. you're also not likely to bend this. If you do a big swing and you miss, you could potentially damage your wheel, hit your hand, something like that. So just do little taps until you drive the bearing out. This will work. So the second method for bearing extraction from a pulley wheel like this, and my preferred method rather than hitting it with something, is with using a threaded rod. So this threaded rod you can buy from most hardware stores. This particular one is about 6 mil. This is actually in imperial measurements, this one, but it's around 6 millimeters. And you can obviously buy threaded rod in different thicknesses depending on the application you're using it for. This 6 mil one, as you can see, fits nicely through the center of this bearing, so it works well for what we're intending it for. Usually it comes in quite long lengths, usually buy it by the meter, but then you can use a hacksaw just to cut it down to size. When you do cut it down to size, make sure before you cut it, you thread on a nut on the end, then cut it to the length you want, and then undo the nut, and that will just prevent any burrs or twisted metal on the end from the cut, stopping you from getting your nuts on in the future. It will basically clean it up. You can also, before you remove the nut, you can also file the end a little bit to round it off, and then remove the nut, and it will just, like I say, it will finish off the end of the threaded rod. Also, along with the threaded rod, you're going to need, as I say, 2 nuts at least, and a bunch of washers. I like to use about 4 washers because then it gives you a lot of scope for different applications. And in this situation, we're going to, I've also put, a little rubber end on mine so I can lean it on my desk when I'm using it. This rubber end is a screw protector off a bottle cage. So when you buy bottle cages, they come with bolts usually, or screws, and then you have these little rubber protectors on the ends of the screws which stop those screws from falling out of the packaging or falling out of the bottle cage when you buy it. I just pull those off and stick them on the end of my threaded rods, and then I have something to lean against my desk so I don't scratch my desk. So there you go, that's one thing you can do with those little rubber ends. So put a nut on the threaded rod, wind it up as high as you need it. This one's quite low, so I'm going to wind it up a little bit so we don't need all this length. There we go. Stick a washer on top. Then you're going to need, in this situation for the ceramic speed one, you're going to need a 20 millimeter socket, because that 20 millimeter socket corresponds perfectly with that part of the wheel. As you can see, it rests perfectly on the outer aluminium area of the bearing. You could call it the bearing cup, I suppose. Just the aperture in which the bearing rests. This is the larger side, this is the narrower side, so we want it to go on the larger side, or the larger opening, because we're going to push from the back and push the bearing out the front. So that goes on there like that. Just double check I'm correct. Yeah. Okay. And then this whole thing goes on top of our threaded rod like that. So the washer there plugs up the hole in the back, and the nut keeps it in place. So we've now got nut, washer, socket, and our wheel. Then on the top goes the socket, which corresponds the closest with the bearing in question, and again this one is 1/2 inch. So we're mixing metric with imperial here, so that goes on top like that. And then we need another washer which pops on the top, and another nut. So screw all that down, make sure that's all tight. Make sure that your socket is lined up as closely as you can get it with that bearing. Tighten it up with your fingers so it's not going to move around. Hold the base nut in position with some kind of spanner or a pair of grips if you don't have a spanner, or an extra spanner. And then with another spanner, again, I'm using adjustable spanners, but you can use the correct size of spanner. The ratchet spanners work the best because they're the quickest way of doing it. Once it's all tightened up, ready to go, just stick your other spanner on top and start turning. So you're tightening it, tightening that bolt, and you shouldn't feel much resistance. If you feel a lot of resistance coming back from the bolt, like it feels like it's just getting tighter and tighter and tighter, that means that you're pushing against the lip. You've picked the wrong side, or that there is something wrong preventing you from pushing that bearing out. This one is moving really easily, like I'm hardly putting any effort in at all here to push that bearing out. And you'll know when it's out because all of a sudden everything will become loose. So it's going, very little resistance here. Still going. Just goes as fast as you can turn, really. And there you go. That indicates that we've gone all the way through, as you can see. Take our nut off the top. And there's our bearing popped out. So the bearing will be sitting inside this socket. And then to put it back together, just make sure this is clean, because the inside of my sockets are not particularly clean. I should go and clean them all, shouldn't I? Same again, socket on top. You can see now that lip, this side doesn't have a lip, this side does. It's a tiny little, less than a millimeter thick lip. You can just see it reflecting there. Again, this time, instead of pushing in this direction, we're pushing in this direction because we want to push the bearing back into the wheel. So, wheel on top, nicely positioned, bearing, make sure it's clean, goes on top, and then socket again, washer, nut. It's all fairly logical. Make sure the two are lined up nicely. You can start with your fingers. Again, these don't require much force to get them in or out, so just tightening with your fingers usually is enough to line everything up. Just make sure it's as perfectly positioned as possible. Okay, and then start tightening again. Don't forget to hold the bottom nut. I thought I could hold it with my fingers, but I can't, it's too small. All right, then do the same again, just tighten. And it will push that nut, sorry, it will push that bearing back down into the pulley wheel. There you are, and it just stopped. So you don't need to continue to tighten. Then we just need to undo that nut. Unthread, washer comes off, socket comes off, job done. So that's how you create, like say, a rudimentary bearing press. This can work for all sorts of applications, and it works really nicely for this one as well. So, right, so there you go, folks. That's how you do it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to the viewer who asked, and also hope that it was helpful to other people as well. Just a very quick video on how to make a simple bearing press at home that could be used for a multitude of different reasons and situations. As always, folks, whatever you're riding, wherever you're riding, stay safe. I'll see you in the next video.